Welkom, beste mensen, met wederom een uitzending van Eemland on the Move. We zitten aan het einde van ons seizoen en wie hebben we hier te gast? Mitch McGahan again. There we go.
Thank you for having me back.
Well, hey, there you go. It's the end of the season. We've unfortunately missed out. Well, that was dreadful, wasn't it? In Rotterdam, the last minute, the last kick.
Heartbreak still hurts a little bit.
Yeah.
I think a few of the boys, it's still a little bit pain, but they can be proud of the way they played. I don't think anyone gave us a hope going over there. I do believe there was one certain person who will remain nameless who has a very famous, Dutch famous podcast, should we say, for rugby in this country.
Yeah.
Predicted that Rotterdam would win by 40 points, but that certainly wasn't the case.
Was that the man that does... Eric is his name,
yes,
right? Yeah.
I was trying to keep him nameless.
No. I love to name him because he's being very difficult to deal with altogether, right? So I've stood next to him in many matches, also with the Dukes. He's not very outspoken, let's put it like that. Yeah, but he's not always on the dot when it comes to predictions. Thank God for that. I think, and this is my personal opinion, I mean, the week before we played him indeed in Rotterdam, I think we gave him the toughest matches in the whole season.
No, I did. Yeah, I tend to agree with you in that one. I think if you look at it, two sides probably pretty evenly matched for in large parts. If you have a look at the way we play our forwards games and things like that, we knew that we could take it to them physically. We obviously had a plan. We executed, and the boys executed on it really, really well in both games to go out and attack their weaknesses. Maybe ones that other teams haven't been able to exploit, but we definitely took them all the way down to the wire. And it was just, like you said, heartbreaking when you've got
literally bloody last minute.
Well, and that's the strength of
what's his name?
Will Maddox.
Yeah, Will Maddox. He was kicking. That was
I think he had a perfect day off the tee, and then he's come up with that with the drop goal as well, and a couple of other really good kicks out of hand. And you combine that with Wolf, and if Will's the best player in the country, which I don't think too many will disagree with me on that one. No. Wolf wouldn't be far behind, and three big plays that he came up with.
I must say that one try that he had that step was like wow. That was like ballet. It was almost.
I think the one that stands out for me is probably the tackle he made on Shaggy after Vich had made the big break. I thought we were in here, and then he's come up with a tackle and thrown Shaggy like a ragdoll about 5 meters backwards, which special players can come up with those kind of special plays, and you can't coach for it, and you can't equivocate it for you in your plan. But look, fair play to them. On the verge of doing something pretty special and maybe going the whole year undefeated, and I don't think there's any teams that's done that in the Ida class. So look,
no, they just, I mean, don't go. They've been indeed by far number one the whole year, so it's not strange that they end up. But indeed, if you have this game that we had, it was so tight, and I think we even had the possibility to actually take it from them. I know that we were 10 points up. We were close to their try line, and that was the moment that we needed a little push through, and then after that we got, I don't know what happened, I think a penalty, and then after that it turned a bit on us.
Yeah, and I think, look, I thought we needed a big play there, a big defensive play, and we got it, and then bam, scored not long after from the line. I thought, this is we've got it there, and then an unfortunate yellow card, and Will has an easy kick to tie the game up, and that was probably the first time that day that I thought maybe not. But like you said, the boys fought, they gave everything. They can be proud of their performance.
Absolutely, the effort was magnificent. So now we've done the season, Mitch, and indeed we did ourselves proud in the last game. So if you look back now in what you were aiming for and what we've delivered, and what is it that said, okay, this is what is for me what made it going according to plan, or we could do better, or what are your contemplations? Look,
at the start of every year we say we want to make the top four. We've done that, so that's certainly a goal achieved. If I have a look at the growth of the team and maybe the responsibility that they've taken upon themselves in being able to understand why they're doing things and how to go and do these things, feedback into their peers. They've done that exceptionally well, particularly in the second part of the season where they've taken a lot more responsibility, and you could see that we were growing into the back end of that season. I don't think maybe one game where we let ourselves down, and here at home to the Dukes where we were probably outmuscled and outgunned on that day, but
But why? Why was that?
It can just happen sometimes. Yeah, a team comes out and hits you bang bang.
Especially the bloody Dukes.
Yeah,
the game out there, I was there. It was also horrible.
Yeah.
Both future and first team, and here again.
No, look, I think with that one here, it was it's just one of those days where every bounce of the ball's come up for them. We've let the ball bounce a couple of times where we shouldn't have. They've capitalised from it. Can happen in rugby, but that game aside, I think the second part of the season we saw some real growth and development with the boys. So very proud of how they've done that. And again, I look at the side that won the Interclass only 2 years ago to the side that played the semi-final. Only 7 names remain from that side that won.
Wow, that's a lot of changes.
Yeah, so there's a lot of changes going on there. And then even if we go back a year ago to the semi-final against Koi, we only had 12 players. We only had 10 players that played in that semi-final take the field against Rotterdam with injuries, unavailabilities, retirements and things like that have hit us. We've replaced it a lot with our own youth. If I have a look, 18 debuts.
Yeah.
For
18, I thought 11, but 12.
18 if you include,
total.
If you include, obviously, the boys from overseas playing their first games, 10 of those.
Oh, of course, yeah, okay. Yeah,
10 of those under 18,
yeah.
And 6 of them coming from our own youth pathway. So we're doing things in the right way and remaining competitive.
Yeah.
If I have a look at other teams in years gone by, you only have to look at Hoy this year. You take 2 players away, and in the number 8, and Chris Raymond and Luke Randall, and obviously, they lose Gareth as their coach. They don't even make the top 4.
No, but they crumbled really.
Exactly, and so we're talking about changing 15 or 12 to 15 players, and we're still making top 4s. We're still remaining competitive.
Yeah,
that's a sign that our pathway's working, and what we're trying to do, and blood these guys and get them up there, so we can take stock in that knowing we're setting ourselves up really, really well for the future to remain competitive while still turning over the older players or the players coming to the end of their careers.
Yeah, because I get asked about it, but I think we're really at a transformation point, aren't we? Because we're getting very young. It looks like it, right?
Yeah,
and that's in a good. It's a good thing, but also you can't in the Interclass. You do need to have a certain amount of seniority to really be able to stay that competitive. How do you see that happening?
I think so long as we have the spine of the team, and by the spine of the team, I'm talking kind of like tight head. You lock number 8, 9, 10, a centre, and a 15. If they're consistent throughout the coming years, and we can build around that spine, and then bring in maybe some foreign players to utilise their experience and help those guys out, we will continue to remain competitive. Look at Rotterdam. They've had 3 years of having the same 10, same 9, the same 13. And then they've added a number 8 and Wolf this year. That's probably going to take them all the way. And they've consistently built the Hague, 3rd final in a row. Same thing, the side that Eemland beat in the final 3 years ago, there's not too many changes there. There's probably 14 of those guys that'll take
still there, yeah.
In next weekend. So
how come? Okay, that's an interesting point. I didn't know that. But how come then that we have so many changes? Why is that?
If I have a look at the Hague almost have 80 kids graduating from Colts every single year, and from that, they might have the best 8 or 10 are coming into futures or first team. They had a relatively young side when they played us in that final a couple of years ago, and they've stayed the same. They're all local boys. That's their club. For us, our youth is only just starting to pay fruition. As we've spoken about, that Colt side that's come through and now starting to fill out those positions that we're talking about. Where we're not quite there yet. We're getting there. We're getting closer, and I think we're probably 3 to 4 years away from where we're constantly every year pushing 8 to 10 players up to play future
I think
rugby.
the ones that we now pushed up, the 6 that we got from the Colts, they're a very good group, I must say. Indeed.
No, they are. And again, that's one group. The following years after that might be a little bit leaner. Yeah. But if I have a look at where our minis and our Cubs. Cubs finishing 3rd after being promoted in the middle of the season up. That group will get stronger next year with the minis that have won the national minis tournament and then finished 2nd this year. So they're going to go into that. So we're 4 or 5 years away from having those coming into senior rugby, and when we have that, then we're going to have a constant barrage of kids coming through.
So that's aiming for a long game, Mitch. So
well, like I said, I think we've got a requisite squad. The majority of the boys are sticking around. We'll lose one or two, and obviously, the 3, 4 foreign boys that we had will also leave. We've recruited already. Our recruitment plans, worked really, really well, and we're probably only one position away before the season officially finishes from having a kind of our roster complete for next year. Consistency is key. We've got that. We're building that. So I dare say, we're going to be competitive again next year. And I think top 4 has to be a realistic goal for us every year, whilst we're continuing to bring in these kids through.
And okay, so come back again. So you say for a structured team that has to have the key positions are?
I'd say hooker, tight head, one of the locks, number 8. 9, 10, centre and fullback.
Okay, got it.
So that would be traditionally when we refer to the spine of a team, that's it.
That's it. Okay. Well, tight heads, you're magnificently equipped.
Yeah, of course.
But all in all, this is a forward club. Always been, Eemland's been quite physical, so for some reason we're able to produce that. Maybe something in the water here, I don't know. But okay. What is your biggest learning point this year? Where you say, hey, this is something I picked up, I wasn't aware of before the season, that's there. And if I hear you talking, I'm putting you maybe on the spot a little bit, but you're committing here for a long term. So you see yourself...
Eemland's my club. I have an affiliation with it. My family's based here. I'd love to continue on for a long time and continue this kind of conveyor belt that we're starting to build. It's some of the plans across the wider club where I've had an influence in making sure that we're getting some semblance of consistency through our key age groups at CJC level. I think you saw that with the Colts this year, and them pretty much mirroring what we were doing meant that those 6 players, once they finished off their season, were able to come in and actually excel.
They did quite well.
If you look at Levi Goldstein, Tone Helpman, Dylan Bloxall, Stans, they all stood out. Roderick Testega as well, halfway through the year being brought up and being brought into a semi-final because he knows what's expected and what's to do. There's no change. So having that in place was the first stepping stone. Now it's getting the 2 sides behind it to get them on board. But look, I think to go back to your original question, a learning point.
You're at the end, you're a very young coach.
I think not understanding the impact of losing some key players, and what that would have for our game style. We probably tried to play like we still had those experienced players in the first part of the year, and I think the simplification of our game in the second part of the year built rhythm and consistency through the team. Something that I would, next time be able to earlier see and realise, hey, listen,
we need to do something
different here. They're not quite grasping the idea, or they don't yet have the experience to see all those pictures that last year's side probably did. But when we did that, we really, really flourished, and it became easier for the boys to understand. And like I said, their own growth in being able to go, right, this is what we're good at. This is what it should look like. We're going to hammer home on this and deliver those messages that the coaching staff have given them. They did very, very well.
Hey, next year, I think we're going to expand on the coaching staff or make it more fixed, right? In the sense of Colts, futures. Well, first team is not going to change that much, but especially Colts and futures, there's going to be more dedicated attention.
Obviously we're expanding out. Gareth did a wonderful job in that kind of, I like to call them transition coaches. Where you're coming from a dual role with the Colts and with the senior setup. We'll add someone else into that. We'll have more Colts coaches, which should free up Gareth to be more with the futures, more with the seniors, and kind of overlooking on how things are doing with the Colts. That's the idea. I think we're bringing in a couple of new faces, which will be announced probably in the next couple of weeks. But excited to have them on board, experienced coaches, people that know the club really, really well. That will definitely add to what we already have